Well, let's talk about some of the forces in nature. There's some trees here that have blown down, you can see. And try and lift even one of these. You'll see that they're pretty heavy. And it's also important to realize that they're heavy when they're lying down, but they're just as heavy when they're standing up. So if you look at the ones that are still leaning, think about how much force is pulling down on those things. That's a very heavy tree at a very steep angle. Now here's an experiment you can try for yourself. So find yourself a stick. You take that stick and hold it by the bottom. When it's straight up, you can kind of keep it upright, not too bad. If you put it at an angle, it takes a bit more strength or torque. If you have it held out straight, it's pretty hard to hold. My muscles are giving out pretty quickly, and at some point, even if it's at a slight angle, which is not so bad, it gets pretty hard, and eventually I'm gonna give up. Here we're coming into one of my favorite groves in Oregon. There's a stand of really big old spruce trees, coastal spruce. And right up here there's a stump of a remnant coastal spruce. There we go. Pretty impressive texture. And you can see how the center is rotted out. It's about 8 or 9 feet across at the bottom in diameter. But at one point, of course, there was a tree sitting on top of that eventually fell down. And right nearby, in this grove of giants, are several fallen giants that we'll go take a look at. Now, you might wonder what caused a mighty tree like this to come crashing down. There's evidence here in this trunk, kind of like the ancient one that was over there. Looks like the center has kind of rotted out. And then here it is, this giant tree that came crashing down. You can see where it knocked branches off its neighbors and maybe even took down one of its neighbors. Well, if you thought those other trees were heavy, I'm not even going to try and lift this one. Even when these biceps I've been working on for 40 years. So, imagine how heavy this thing is. And all the ones that are still standing around it are equally heavy. The ones that are this size. There's a lot of force pulling those down towards the earth. Luckily, they're upright, so the earth can support them. It's the torque that will get you. And even if they're rotted out on the inside, you know, their outer layer can provide enough force to hold up the bulk. But if there's some stress, let's say a windstorm or a whole lot of snow that's unequally balanced, that's going to put some torque on it. Or if the tree starts to give way and lean a little bit, chances are it's going to keep going at some point. Some hold their lean for a impressively long time. But the more they lean, the more gravity is pulling against those limited roots that they've got. There is a lot of weight in these trees. And from the outside, it's a little hard to tell the status of their inside. They look plenty sturdy, but I imagine these two looked plenty sturdy too before suddenly they weren't. Okay, I've come across another fallen spruce tree. I'd say a medium-sized one, but you know, it's probably 3 or 4 feet across at the widest. And here's its stump. Once again, this one is not uprooted, but it does look like this center has rotted out. Seems to be a theme here with these coastal spruces. Though I have seen some uprooted ones as well. Well, based on the evidence I've gathered from other spruce trees now, I'm guessing that this giant also has some decay going on in the middle. Why do I suspect that? Well, check out this shelf fungus that's growing right out of the trunk. Usually that stuff doesn't grow unless it's got some mycelium and some rotted wood. So I don't think I'd want to set up my tent underneath of this giant, especially if there's a windstorm coming.